Hi everybody, it's Jim from Sprague Woodturning. This week we take this less than desirable maple blank, combine it with some copper pipe and resin to make an awesome 55,000 subscriber giveaway bowl. So I've used copper pipe on the channel here before, but it is important to rough up the surface, the inside and the outside of the pipe. The pipe can be quite smooth, and if you generate enough heat while tooling or by sanding, the pipe can actually slide out of the resin. So it's important to rough it up, and here I'm using 80 grit, and just to give that resin a good tooth, give the pipe a tooth for the resin to bond to. So 80 grit is all you really need here. And since I'm going to fill the inside of these, I just put duct tape on the bottom just to hold the resin inside the pipe. This week we're going to be using Art Cast again from designer Epoxy. The one thing that I really like about this epoxy, 16 to 24 hours is the cure time on it. Typically when I mix things in the afternoon, it is usually good to go in the morning. So that's the great thing about this product. I didn't think that I would use this product as much as I have, but I certainly have incorporated quite a bit in the work. So there's a flash wine red, lilac purple, and with that copper pipe, it really should give us a really neat look. So like I always do, I'm going to put a waste block slash glue block on the bottom of this piece. So I'm just cleaning up the surface, grinding off any of that anchor seal, flattening things out. And this one was a little different from the one that I did last time. I'm just finding center on this tenon. It's gone oval. So, you have to go around quite a bit in order to find the true center on it. There I've drilled a hole through the waste block from my little awl here. Shove that through so it just sticks through, and then dip that in the hot melt glue, and there you go. Might have been a little hard to pick up there, but I am wearing a self-powered respirator. I have the Air Shield Pro from Trend. So it's very important to protect your lungs. So please give that some serious consideration before ever stepping into the lathe. If you're new here, that is the 5/8 bowl gouge from David Ellsworth. Certainly my go-to gouge as far as doing any amount of wood turning. There, I don't know if you noticed or not, but this bowl is well, it's got some issues. It's got some pretty major issues. So you probably noticed by now that I've left a lot of real-time clips in here. I'm still getting not a ton of comments, but the odd comment is in there where, this guy doesn't shut up, or he talks for the whole video, or ruin the experience for me, so on and so on and so on. Uh, the reason why I'm doing these voiceovers is because I like to use my dust collector, and when my dust collector is on and the footage is sped up, it makes a high pitch whining noise. So that's why I'm doing these complete voiceovers. I'd like to think that I'm adding a lot of value as far as if you want to learn how to turn based on my experience and, you know, making over 3,000 finished bowls has given me a fair bit of experience, not including pepper mills and hollow forms and, so on and so on and so on. So for the new people, if you're wondering why I do these complete voiceovers, that's why. All right, so on with the repair of this bowl. There is there was a ton of checking in the end grain. There's a big ugly wooger there. I don't even really know, some rot. Yes, that's a term, wooger. And so anyway, I'm gonna cut these pieces out. I'm not gonna draw just straight lines. I want to add some curves to this inlay. This is just a cheap little reciprocating saw from Princess Auto here in Canada. I wish that I had got a more aggressive blade. This one certainly did the job and it worked fine, but I think next time I'll get a more aggressive blade to cut these bad areas out. You've seen me use this a ton on the channel as well. This is a Typhoon bit. Lee Valley carries a good selection of these, and that's where this one came from. And there is a link in the description to Lee Valley if you want to get one. This one's starting to get a little dull. They can be cleaned with alcohol. Just place a bit of alcohol in a cup and then throw that in with it. And the alcohol typically will clean up the bit good enough and it will restore it. But this one here has seen a fair bit of use and it's probably time to get rid of it. I wasn't real happy with this one section that I'm working on now. So I get out the Cutsall grinder just to give a little more, make things a little faster. And then back with the Typhoon bit just to try and clean things off a bit. And there you have it. After a little while, all the areas are nicely cleaned up and, they're not perfect, but, I found it to be the most effective way to clean up these areas. All right, so it is the next day, and actually, off camera, I made two more of these. I did a quick calculation, and I figured that there wasn't going to be enough with just the two pipes, so I decided to do two more. So let's cut these to length on the bandsaw and get these inlaid. If you're curious, this is actually a metal cutting blade that I put on the bandsaw. I would not recommend using a wood blade to do this, even though it probably would work. It's certainly going to take the edge off of the blade. All right, so I did a trial run with just the copper pipe, and I still don't have enough. So I've cut up a bunch of stabilized branches, maple branches, And we'll incorporate that with the inlay, and it still should look pretty neat. So, this here's design time. I could have done this any number of ways. It to each his own how you want to do this. All I'm using is the Starbond to set the pieces in place, and then that way we'll be able to go back over to the grinder and grind them flush on the outside anyway. But I off camera, I probably did this 2 or 3 times just trying to figure out exactly how I wanted these to lay in here. I really didn't want them to be too proud of the surface, the very top surface, because the next resin that we're going to pour in here, I wanted that to be kind of on the very top and not have any of the pipe and branches exposed. We do get a little bit of that, but again, this is a personal choice how you want to lay these in here. And to be honest, with you, it's just really willy-nilly. There's no rhyme or reason how I did it. I did try and keep the colors the same on each side. That's about it. All right, let's see if we can grind back some of this. I don't know if we're going to be able to or not, but I'd like to be able to grind this back so it's flush with the surface of the wood of the bowl, and then that way we can pour our resin. Here I'm using the Kutzall grinding disc, and to be honest with you, this worked a lot better than I thought it was going to. I didn't think that it was going to grind the copper pipe back as good as it did. Placement of these pieces is important, and you'll see in a couple of areas where I didn't get the pipe all the way out through the surface. I thought it was going to be good, but it ended up not being good. So when you lay these branches, and if you do the pipe, make sure that they're basically proud of the outside surface. In the end, it didn't really matter. There you can see some of them. Ideally, those pieces would have been further out to the surface, and I wouldn't have had to trim so much after the resin had cured. So I'm going to be using 6 mil poly to hold the resin into these areas, and I didn't want any resin staining in the end grain, so that's why I put that glue right up close to the opening on the inlay area. And then of course use our favorite duct tape just to make sure that there's no leaks. Same thing on the other side. I did manage to get a little bit of glue in some areas, so it's important not to get any of that hot melt glue down inside where the inlay is going to be, or else you're going to have to do some correcting afterwards. On the inside, I couldn't really cut back those branches. So, this worked actually a lot better than I thought it was going to do. So after I put the 6 mil poly on there and trimmed it, I then ran another bead of hot melt glue around the edge of it, and we never had any leaks at all. Ironically, we did have a very small leak on the outside, but it did not affect anything. There might even be some people ask why I didn't trim the inside of this with a gouge, and if I had tried that, I definitely would have pulled pieces out of there, because I've been down this road, not so much with copper pipe, but with just branches. It typically just doesn't work, so you either got to grind it or leave it be and come up with creative ways to hold the resin. Here we are again with the art cast from Designer Epoxy. We're actually going to use a color that we have not used on the channel before, and that is hazelnut. Now, I could have used a brighter color, but since this is a giveaway bowl, I figured that I would just stick with an earth tone as opposed to a yellow or a red. Okay, well, it might be a small miracle if we don't have a leak here, but we shall see. I do find it very hard to figure out how much epoxy that you're going to need when you're trying to fill in areas like this. If it's a big open void, you can measure it and calculate it that way. But when it comes to these kinds of inlays that you're trying to fill in with resin, uh, it's virtually impossible to know how much you're going to use. Don't worry, the excess doesn't go to waste. It gets poured into cups that I will either, that are now multicolored, and I'll either do a giveaway or I'll make something with them in the future. The epoxy does not go to waste. All right, well, that's it. I'm going to move this into the pressure pot, and we'll see you guys tomorrow. So this is the next day. Just trying to get rid of this plastic so that it's not slapping my knuckles when it comes loose. There you can see we're at a little leak, and fingers crossed because I'm not exactly sure how this is going to go. And as you can see, it's pretty rough when we started. As far as the turning of the copper pipe is concerned, it actually turned quite nicely. As you can see, I'm not wearing a glove. I'm not pro glove or anti glove. I just never put one on. I wear a glove quite often when I'm roughing out. The copper, when it is cut, is warm. It's not hot. It won't burn. And during the turning of this, I never had any copper embedded in my arms or my hands or anything like that. Like I said, with the carbide tool, I really cut it clean, and it was just irritating every now and then where it would maybe land on your hand. But you definitely need to wear a full face shield. Like I said, I'm using a respirator. There you can see where the pipe didn't come through all the way to the outside. So now we're gonna have to trim that back a little bit. I should have known better. I've been down this road with branches a number of times, but like I said, I thought it was good, but it wasn't. So, light cuts here, once you've got it basically cut down to the surface, it certainly is a lot smoother sailing. So even though I glued this thing and taped it, we ended up getting some resin staining after the initial pour of the combining resin. Uh, that really wasn't a factor in the end because we ended up trimming this bowl back and got rid of all that resin staining anyway. But there you go. I mean, it's cut cleanly. Uh, I'm really impressed with this the Hercules from Hunter Tool Systems here, and good luck doing this with a normal gouge. You probably could, but man, you are going to sharpen a ton to clean this back where to the point that you can sand it. So it's now time to do the inside, and then if you remember, those pipes are sticking in there quite a ways. Sorry about the focusing issue on the camera. I left it on manual, or sorry, on automatic, and anyway, I forgot to do it. So I do apologize for that. I did cut a bunch of this footage out because it's very repetitive, but all I'm doing is taking very, very light cuts. If you're too aggressive here and you get a bad catch, there's probably a good chance this bowl will blow apart. Even though it's still at this stage quite beefy, as you can see, it's probably a minimum 3/4 of an inch in thickness. So light cuts is the key. and patience. And if you have both of those, you probably shouldn't have any issues with cutting this back. I know that I've talked about this in the past as well, but for the new people, if you're looking at a lot of the bowls that I make, you'll see that they're actually pretty beefy. The reason for that is because, if you make a really thin bowl, there's not a lot of surface area for the resin to adhere to. So if somebody were to come along and pick up this bowl by the inlay and say it's down to, a quarter inch or an eighth of an inch, there's a chance that maybe that inlay would break out of there. So when I do these inlays on the sides of these bowls or hollow forms or whatever, it's typically no less than a half inch in thickness. I really can't stress that enough. And so far, I've had great success doing it that way. There you can see it's actually getting so hot that it's actually melting the glue and it's adhering to the inlay area there. I thought that was kind of neat. But anyway, the Hercules is doing a good job cleaning that all up. And eventually I'll get a new cutter on here to take some finishing cuts. And again, this tool worked awesome. All right, what do you think? I think it's way cool. I am definitely looking forward to maybe doing some more of these. A ton of work though, that's for sure. Really surprised at how well. I should be surprised because it's carbide against copper, but it cut very cleanly. But I think I do need to rotate the cutter. As I can see, it's not really cutting real clean, but it certainly did a real good job cutting that copper clean though. So anyway, as you can see, we've got some wormholes or bug holes. So what I'm going to do is fill them with some black medium CA from Starbond. Along with that, we're going to have to mix up some more resin because I've got some areas here that are just way too deep for tinted CA to work. So there's one there and there's more over here. I could cut this down further, but I don't want to. I want to leave this resin edge on the top as much as I can. So that's why I'm going in that direction. The great thing about these little micro tips that come with the Starbond glues when you buy them, you can shove it right down into the hole and then kind of extract it as you're filling the void. If you've tried this, you'll know exactly what I mean. A lot of times, a bubble kind of creates or an air pocket is inside, and then you sand it back, and it really hasn't filled anything. So I shove the tip deep down inside the hole as far as it'll go, and then slowly extract it as I'm filling the hole with glue. All right, so I've just made up a couple of little areas here with the 6mm poly just to hold in the resin. Yeah, and this is Art Cast with our hazelnut tinted resin. 2 ounces should be plenty. Ideally, that plastic would have been a little looser, and then of course you wouldn't have any issues in creating air pockets. But I just stuck a stick in there to get around that, and it worked just fine. All right, I'm just going to throw this in the pressure pot, and I'm not in a huge hurry for this, so we've got time to fix this correctly, and we'll see you guys tomorrow. So it is the next day, so it's time to just do kind of a final little trimming on this piece. Here you can see I've changed the cutter completely out, and you'll see a noticeable difference in the shavings. That I don't know how many bowls I did with that, but it was quite a few. And now, of course, when you look at the shavings, there's a big difference in the shavings before and after. And again, light cuts. And for those of you who wonder why a bowl such as this is $300, $400, $500, if you look at how many days are involved in making a turning like this, that kind of gives you an idea why wood turners that are in business, well, we just can't typically give these bowls away. Well, I guess technically you can because I am. But anyway, you know what I mean. And there's a beautiful cut surface after some shear scraping with the 5/8 bowl gouge, and good to go to the inside. And again, you know, if you go back to the previous footage and then you look at the shavings that are coming off the tool now, there is a big difference. On to sanding, this is the 3.5-inch dimple disc from sandpaper.ca. And again, there's a link in the description for 10% off your next order. Just use code INLAYGYM, and that goes for Hunter Tool Systems, Starbond Adhesives, and of course, Designer Epoxy. So what I did with this piece, like I typically do, I sand from 60 to 800, or sorry, 60 to 180, and then I take it off, and there's some more filling that was required. Again, you know, the more you cut this down when you're trimming it, you're probably going to expose more holes, or maybe the glue didn't go in totally deep into the and fill the whole cavity. So just grind those down and then turn the lathe on and blend them all in once that's done. And I just carried on sanding to 800. Like I do with all resin pieces, this is triple E buffing compound from the BL buffing system. So on this piece, since you had just two main areas, I figured that I would do them separately and then turn the lathe on and blend it all in. Take note of the buffing pad, how the copper has come off on it and made it kind of blackish. And then the last step is to clean the piece up with denatured alcohol to get rid of any of that buffing compound prior to your first coat finish. All right, so we're going to use Waterlux again, original VOC on this project. All right, what do you think of that? Very cool. There's more purple on this side than there is on the other side. Not much for chatoyance going on in here. A little bit of almost orange spalting. A little bit of chatoyance there actually. Should be nice once it's, this is going to definitely take 3 coats. Anyway, we'll see you tomorrow for the second coat. For the new people, same process again, buffing with the triple E buffing compound, then cleaning up with denatured alcohol, and then our next coat finish. Well, good morning. This is the second coat of Waterlux. Well, there you go. That Waterlux, it covers so well that maybe 2 coats will do it. Might just put 3 on it just to make sure that it's perfect. Man, I'm loving that copper pipe with that different colored resin. That is for sure. Might be seeing more of that in the future. All right, so if there's a third coat, it'll be done the same, and if not, we'll see it when we're doing the foot. Just parting the piece off here with the 3/16" parting tool from Crown. You'll see here in the end, I didn't actually have to cut this piece off. If you keep just moderate pressure on the glue joint and wiggle it back and forth like I am there, usually it will back free. And something that doesn't happen very often, this is my vacuum chuck. First attempt putting it on, engage the vacuum, and there it was. Pretty much perfect. Just doesn't happen all that often. So no resin on the bottom, just stuck with the 5/8 bowl gouge to cut the bottom cleanly, and then sanded it from 180 to 320 prior to getting the signature on it. So as the first coat of finish goes on the bottom here, let's draw a name for the winner of this beautiful bowl. Good luck, everyone. Since the last giveaway, there have been 4 videos. These are the names that the random YouTube comment picker has selected. What I will do now is throw these into a bowl, and we will draw a name, and that will be the winner of the bowl for this giveaway. All right, there is our 4 names. Congratulations, Molly Dempsey. You are the winner of the 55,000 subscriber giveaway bowl. And I actually know Molly, so that's really cool too. She commented on the Canada Bowl from last week, and she is the winner this time around. Thanks again for everybody that has commented. I really appreciate it. Let's do a last little talk about this week's project. And again, thanks for commenting, Molly, and congratulations again. Right, well, let's have a last little talk about this beautiful little giveaway bowl. Try and film that so that the resin's not all shiny, so you can actually see what's going on in there. Really like that resin on the very top. And again, you know, you've got a little bit of copper pipe and branches coming through. It's a real neat look. Outside, very cool as well. A lot going on in this bowl. Wormholes or bug holes. This has got some spalting on this side. And just a very cool project. There's the very bottom. Still needs 2 more coats of finish and then it will be ready to go. The main reason why I show pieces like this, I know that if you're a wood turner, you've got tons of pieces probably in your inventory like this where you're like, I don't want to throw this out and I don't really know what to do with it. Well, that's what you do with it. Cut out all those bad areas, inlay it with some resin, add some value to it, some visual interest to it, and in the end, it's actually probably worth a lot more money. There's that one area with the chatoyance, however you want to say it, compression grain, and I know that it looks like it should have a texture, but it's not. There's no texture there at all. Piece ended up being 10 inches across, 4 3/4 high, and it's a beautiful little bowl. At the end, I'll try and do some lit photos from the top to see how much of it's shining through the end grain. The red and the hazelnut, yeah, they're maybe a little too similar in color. If I could do it again, I would probably put a little different color in the copper pipe, just for more contrast, but nothing too extravagant. Either way, I mean, I like it. I think it's a really nice bowl. Yeah, so anyway, if you got some inventory that looks like this, that's what you can do to save it. All right, well, that's it. Next week, we are going to probably do a processing video, and the week after that, I got a bunch of stuff that I need to get done. I need to get my yard cleaned up here, and it's starting to get hot, so I want to get that done before it's too hot to do any of that stuff. So, but I'm not 100% sure. It's all going to be weather dependent and body dependent. So I'm dealing with some issues. I've got an arthritic knee that's really kind of acting up, so we'll have to see how that goes. But at least I have the tractor this time, so it's going to make my life a lot easier. Hopefully it's going to make my life easier, but we'll see anyway. All right, well, that's it. Again, I will never ask you for money if you win a bowl. So if you get contacted by anybody telling you that you have to pay for the shipping, no, it's fraudulent. And if you do, send me an email, spraguewoodturning@gmail.com with their particulars, and I will forward that on to the authorities, and hopefully we can get these people caught. All right, that's it. Till next week, take care, stay safe, don't forget the bell. Please share my videos with your friends. See you next week.